and for you not to see their face. They may be more motivated by fear than you are. And when you understand these things, it can help you to make better decisions on how you handle situations. Okay? This is emotional intelligence. Now, I literally faced a situation where a couple of Latino gangbangers were about to murder myself and somebody I was with. I immediately understood why they were doing it. Two people literally got out of the car at about 2 o'clock in the morning in the city of Los Angeles. They got out of the car with guns, locked and loaded. They pulled the clip back. And it was very clear to me there was not going to be any conversation at all. They were going to approach the car. One came on my passenger side, which was a young lady. The other one approached my side on the driver's side. They were going to raise those guns, put them to our head, pull the trigger, kill us, and continue what they were doing. I immediately understood why they were doing it and what motivated them. And again, when you understand what motivates another person, therein lies, within that understanding, the solution to the problem or the dilemma that you're facing. What was motivating them, and I immediately understood it, was that they thought that myself and my passenger had seen the fact that they had two people in the trunk of their car. I knew this. I knew this because we had seen that. Because the persons in the trunk of the car were trying to signal for help because they heard that a car was behind them. We also know this, I know this, because after I quickly jumped behind the car, as my passenger told me to, before I actually saw it, because I would have handled it differently if I had, immediately they started looking behind us, and my passenger was pointing at the trunk and just acting frantic that there's somebody in the trunk of the car. We saw their fingers wiggling as they were trying to signal. And immediately, from the rear seat, one of them bent down. There were two in the front, two guys in the front and two guys in the back. One of them bent down. And next thing I know, apparently they had pulled or dragged the two ladies one by one from the trunk. Apparently they had an opening in the seat of the car. And they pulled them into the back seat. And now, instead of being 4 people in the back seat, there were 2. I'm sorry, instead of being 2 people in the back seat, there were 4. Immediately after that, the passenger on the right side of the car and one of the 2 passengers in the rear of the car, they both got out. The passenger on the right side and the passenger on the left side in the rear both got out the car. They both put a clip in their gun and they are approaching my car. They were literally seconds away. Within those seconds, I understood, using emotional intelligence, what was motivating them and why they were doing it. I understood what their solution to their problem was. Their issue was they were doing something deadly. They were committing a crime. They had a couple of victims and they were not going to be thwarted or stopped by us. We were witnesses. They didn't have a license plate, so I didn't have to be concerned about that. If they had had a license plate that would have played, it would have been different. They knew they did not have a license plate. So they knew that even if we called the police, there was no license plate to report. They weren't worried about that. They were worried about the fact that we were following them to find out where they were going and taking these girls so we could intervene. And they were absolutely right. That's what motivated them. And their solution to that problem that was presented to them, now it's a problem, was to simply get rid of the witnesses. Problem solved. Presto, problem solved. So how do you use emotional intelligence to handle something like that? When you understand, especially when you can do it quickly, what motivates another person, you can remove the element of that thing that's motivating them to do what they're going to do. Once you remove the element of what's motivating a person to do what they're going to do, now they no longer have the motivation to do it. So how do we do that? Recognizing emotions and facial expression, stories, and even music, and that also in actions. I recognize all of that. How do we remove the motivation? You convince them without talking to them. And you do it through your actions. You convince them that, no, you're wrong. You think we saw those girls in the trunk? You're wrong. We didn't see anything. You think we're following you? You're wrong again. We're not following you. We got our own issue going on. We don't even notice you. You're so irrelevant that even though you're approaching us with guns right now, we don't even see you. We're doing something nobody would do if they did see you. And nobody would do if they saw anything before. And if we don't see you now approaching us with the guns, and we didn't see anything before, you therefore have no reason to do what you're about to do. I understood that. Now, how do you convey that message? Well, my decision in an instant was to get my passenger to stop focusing on them. And by the way, as soon as they got out the car, she got, "Oh my God, they're going to kill us, they're going to kill us." And she started yelling at me to back up and run. I didn't. I sat there. And I wanted her to stop looking at them and pointing and reacting hysterically as she was. So in order to get her to do that, I just started yelling at her, cursing her out, calling her names, called her a bitch. I basically said, "What the hell are you trying to do? Make up your mind. Where do you want to go? You want to go to his house? You want to go to your mama's house? What are you trying to do? I mean, you got me driving all over the city like you don't know what you're doing." And as they were approaching, and I said this loud enough for them to hear it, I raised my hand back. I said, "Bitch, you better look at me when I'm talking to you. You better look at me when I'm talking to you." And I scared the crap out of her because I'm a very calm guy, and she never saw me act like that. And I literally raised my fist back like, "If you don't look at me right now while I'm talking to you, I'm gonna knock your teeth out." And I scared the crap out of her. And I needed to scare her. I did not have time to calmly explain to her, "Okay, here's what we're going to do. We've got to convince them that we didn't see anything. And the way we're going to convince them is we're going to act like we're just two people that are just having an argument and we're just so into it that we're not even paying attention to them. And the reason we jump behind their car is not because we're following them. It's because you can't make up your mind where you want me to take you. And I'm getting mad at you. And if I'm obviously not paying attention to them, I don't want you to pay attention to them. Pretend like you don't even see them. And once they have no reason, and we take away the reason they thought they had to kill us, they'll be okay. We'll be okay. And they'll just get back in the car." I didn't have time to tell her all that. I only had time to act. And guess what? There literally was not enough time to do anything else. Oh, I could have put the car in reverse and tried to get away, but they would have started shooting. There's no question about that. There's a possibility that we both could have not got hit. There's a good possibility we both would have got hit, or at least one of us. Very, very high probability. So no matter what we did, there was a risk, including what I did. And you can think what you want or say what you want, but anything else is conjecture because this is exactly what happened. And I'm here to tell about it. Nobody got shot. They literally got to the one on her side and the one on my side. They literally got right next to us and literally raised the guns on both sides. And the guns were literally pointed at our heads. And I saw this through my peripheral vision. I would not allow her to look because I still was menacing and yelling at her like, in any second now, I'm going to hit you. Because I did not want her to look up. I did not want her to make eye contact with them. I did not want her to react to the fear of them being there because I guarantee if she had done that, they would have shot. They're like wild dogs or animals. Once they're locked in on you, they're not thinking. Okay? And I know for a fact, any reaction from her to them would have been deadly. So at this point, her head is down. She's got her hands over her head, and I'm still yelling at her, and they saw this. They saw this. And from my peripheral vision, I saw them raise those guns at both our sides. I saw it in the reflection on her side of the glass, and I saw it through my peripheral vision on my side. I mean, I saw the reflection. I saw the person on my side through the reflection, and I saw through my peripheral vision the one on her side. I also saw that while I continued to yell at her about making up your mind where you want me to take you, because I'm tired of this, you got me driving all over the city, and you better tell your brother to give me my dadgum money. Just making up stuff. I didn't even know if she had a brother or not. I hadn't known the girl that long. Ultimately, one of them said something to the other one in Spanish. And to my peripheral vision, I saw the person gesture with his gun. He moved his gun from her head, and he gestured with it towards the car. And I don't know what he said in Spanish, but I'm sure it was something like, "Oh man, they didn't see nothing. Let's just go back to the car." And they turned to walk away. No shots fired. I continued to yell at her. And by this time, the light had turned green. So they got back in the car, and I'm sure that whoever was in the car, and I don't know if one of the people in the car was a leader or if one of the people that approached us was a leader, which would have been better for us because the leader is the one that makes the decision. He doesn't have to explain anything to the other people. And if he wasn't the leader, he had a good story to go back to the car and tell them, hey, man, SA, they didn't see anything. They're not even, man, we was about to shoot them, man, but they didn't even look up. They're just yelling at each other. We thought they saw something. They didn't see nothing. And they just drove off. The light turned green, and when the light turned green, I stayed there just yelling at her and making movements like I'm still mad at her. And then I gradually took off because if I had stayed there too long and let the light turn, it would have looked funny. So I actually followed behind them. I followed behind them until they took a right turn, and I just kept going straight. Like, no, I'm not following you. And that was emotional intelligence, which actually has saved my life and other people's lives on quite a number of occasions, actually. And I wrote a book about that. So let's move on. That was a bit more. I gave you a bit more there than I intended to. Benefits of emotional intelligence. People with high emotional intelligence often have other beneficial traits, such as the ability to delay gratification while pursuing long-term goals. The level of emotional intelligence, including the skill of reading the emotions of others, correlates with success in career and other social situations. I just gave you an example of the level of emotional intelligence, including the skill of reading the emotions of others. I read the emotions of these others just based on the situation, the circumstance, because I understand human behavior, I understand human nature. I did not even take the time to look at them as individuals and psychoanalyze them. I mean, it was quite obvious that they were gang members. They were LA gang members, and the car they had did not have a license plate. And also, you might be wondering how were they signaling through the trunk, because the locking mechanism on the trunk was missing, which means they very likely stole this car, and they popped the lock on the trunk, and there was a piece of rope or wire that was holding the trunk down, and the girls were putting their fingers through that part of the trunk, and they were wiggling their fingers to try to make sure that somebody saw them. And they probably did it because they heard a car behind them. And it really disturbed me that my passenger, my friend, reacted the way she did, because had I seen it myself before she saw it, before she told me to jump behind the car, I would not have jumped behind the car as erratically as I did. I would have attempted to follow them, but I would have done it much more calmly and rationally, where it would seem more natural. And I would have made sure that neither one of us was looking at, pointing at, or gesturing towards the trunk of the car. Now, even though no doubt they saw her and me looking at the trunk and her pointing at it and reacting wildly, we basically use psychology to make them forget what they saw and convince them that there's something entirely different going on, because again, our behavior was so out of sync with the way someone would act if they actually saw what they were doing and also saw them approaching us with guns. So again, the logic of my reasoning is, if we don't see you now approaching us with those guns, what makes you think we could have possibly have seen anything earlier? Because we're obviously ignoring you. So obviously, whatever's going on in this car has nothing to do with anything going on in your car. And they bought it. My biggest regret is that there was little I could do. I so wish I had to protect the passenger I was with. I had to. Nothing would be gained by her and me being victims, in addition to the young ladies that had been abducted. And if I was with some of my friends or by myself, there are a number of other ways I may have handled it. But this was a real life-threatening situation. Decisions had to be made. They had to be made quickly. It's one of the benefits of emotional intelligence. Now, our emotions is what often gets people killed, because we have emotions and we're very high-strung about our emotional desire to do things. And sometimes people do things that are irrational and don't benefit anyone. Emotionally, it may seem like the right thing to do at the moment, but then it results in somebody not going home. Police officers have to do this on a regular basis. You know, you have to analyze the situation. You have to know your strengths and your weaknesses and your resources and your weaponry or whatever the case is, and take all of that into account. Anyway, again, people with high emotional intelligence often have other beneficial traits such as the ability to delay gratification while pursuing long-term goals. That's a whole nother thing. That's why there are people that earn modest incomes who have attained millionaire status simply because they delay gratification in order to pursue long-term goals. That means they make sacrifices now. They make regular routine investments on a diversified portfolio, and they contribute to their investments consistently, and over time they accumulate wealth. That takes emotional intelligence. A person lacking of emotional intelligence, whatever little bit of money they have now, they will spend it as quick as they can get it. In fact, King Solomon said, a fool and his money are soon parted. Again, a fool and his money are soon parted, because that person who is a fool lacks emotional intelligence. They need instant and immediate gratification. They emotionally need to let other people know that they have money now, and they never end up accumulating a lot of wealth, because whatever tiny wealth they do get, they spend it as quick as they get it.